We're taking a look at some circles and parts of circles, formulas with circles, and I have given you a picture of a circle and then four variables or measurements that relate to circles. So I want to first of all go through what these letters mean, and then we'll practice finding each of these. So the R in this variable box, and I call this a variable box. That's not really a proper math term, but that's what I've always called it. And I had my students to draw this box because I didn't want these values to get mixed up in their problem. So I always had them to put the variables in a box. R stands for radius. D is diameter. Capital C is circumference. And capital A is area. And for all of the problems on this page, I'm going to use 3.14 as the value, approximate value for pi. So we will be using pi in just about all of these about a circle. So given this circle over here, I am going to tell you that radius for this circle, and I'll highlight it, radius is this halfway line. It's halfway across the circle from the center to the arc. This is radius, and I'm going to say that this is 5. And we need to give it a unit, so let's just use feet. Maybe this is a fountain in the backyard. Fountain would sit here at the center. The radius is 5 feet. So that will become the value for R. And this is a specific value. It is not rounded, so I'm going to say equals 5 feet. So diameter would be exactly twice that amount. So diameter is all the way across the circle through the center. And diameter, in this case, would be 2 times the radius. In every case, it's 2 times the radius. But in this case, it's going to be 10. 5 and 5, or 5 times 2 is 10. So diameter is a value that is equal to 10 for this circle. Now, circumference and area, those are capitalized. We're going to have to use formulas to find each of those. And the particular formula for circumference that your book uses is circumference is 2, the constant 2, times pi times r. So C equals 2 pi r, and A is pi times the radius to the second power. So we'll be using these formulae all through this exercise. So let's calculate circumference. So circumference is going to be 2 times pi times the radius, which in this case is 5 feet. So I would say 2 times 5, that's 10. And then 10 times pi. Remember, we're using 3.14 for pi. If you want an approximation, use 3.14. If you need an exact answer, you would use pi as 22 over 7, the fraction. But I just need an approximation. So 10 times 3.14, this is, since that pi 3.14 has been rounded, I'm using the approximation. So this is about 31 4/10 feet. Always put the unit. That's just a good math habit to have. And I'm using 31.4 as an approximation of circumference because the 3.14 was rounded, and therefore anything with that 3.14 is just an approximation. Okay, for area, we know that it is pi times the radius to the second power. So pi is still sitting there. 5 times 5 is 25. And at the point that I substitute 3.14, that equal sign is no longer an equal sign. It's an approximation sign. So area is approximately the product of those two. So let me get a calculator. I believe it's about 79, but let's see. 3.14 times 25, 78.5. And area is always measured in square units. So 78.5 square feet. Again, that's approximately, because that 3.14 is approximately. Area is in square units. For this circle, let's let the diameter, so diameter is all the way across the circle. Going to let that be 15 meters. So diameter is 15 meters. Pi is not involved there, so this is not an approximation. So half of 15 would give me the radius. Half of 15 is 7.5, and that would also be the same unit. So radius is 7.5 meters. And once we know that, we can approximate circumference and area. Circumference is pi, I'm using my formula. I learned it as pi d, but your book uses 2 pi r. Same thing, because 2 times radius is diameter, but I'll stick with your formula. So 2 times pi times the radius. 7.5 times 2, that is 15, and pi. And at the point that I substitute that 3.14 for pi, I will make this an approximation. And let me get my calculator and type that in. 15 times 3.14 is 47.1, and this was meters. So circumference is approximately 40, dyslexia showing there, sorry, 47.1 meters. And then the area is going to be pi times radius squared. So area is pi times 7.5 to the second power. Be careful there. Just make sure that you do that correctly. 7.5 times 7.5 is 56.25. And at the point we let pi come in there as an approximation, the whole area gets approximated. And I'm going to use a calculator here. I'm getting 176.625 square meters. And in the absence of directions about how to round, I will just use that whole value. It's approximated anyway, but unless it says round to the nearest tenth or hundredth, just go ahead and give the full value. On the final exam, unless directed otherwise, write what comes out of your calculator. A lot of this is about precision and accuracy. We have to be accurate, especially when you're dealing with something like electricity or medicine, where people's lives are on the line. You have to be accurate, and it's good to just go ahead and get used to being accurate. The radius of a circle is 10 centimeters. What is the diameter of the circle? So I'm going to go ahead and draw in what they tell me. They tell me that the radius, let me just go ahead and draw all the way across and then the halfway across. Okay, the radius is 10, and this is centimeters. So diameter is going to be 2 of those, or 20 centimeters. So we know 2 pieces of this box, 10 centimeters and 20 centimeters. And we've answered the question. The answer is right here. But just for practice, I'm going to go ahead and do these for you. There's the answer that we're looking for. But let's calculate circumference and area. All right. Circumference is 2 times pi times r. So in this case, circumference is 2 times pi times 10. 2 times 10 is 20, and we still have pi. And here I'm going to substitute 3.14 for pi and use my calculator to finish that off there. So 20 times 3.14 is 62.8, and these are centimeters. So that is the value of circumference. That's the distance around this circle. And then to get area, we want to know the formula first. I encourage you to always write the formula. That will save you careless mistakes. The radius here is 10, and we're taking that to the second power. So that's approximately 3.14 times 100, and that is approximately 314 square centimeters. So that would be the area. But the dimension that they were asking me for here is diameter. And finally, on this page, a circular garden has a radius of 8 meters. So if you look at that on the circle itself, when you get sick of this, you'll remember it for a lifetime. So 2 of those would give me diameter, so that's 16 meters. But the question this time is to find the circumference. And circumference is going to be the distance around the circle. So if this were a walking track, it would be that distance around, and that's what we're looking for. What is the circumference of the circle? But I do want to find area as well, just for practice. Circumference is 2 pi r. So circumference is 2 times pi times radius. 2 times 8 is 16. And then we're going to multiply that times pi, 3.14. And so that is approximately 50.24 meters. Again, it did not tell me to round. And then area is going to be pi times the radius squared. So pi times radius to the second power is going to be 3.14 times 64. So the area is approximately 200.96 square meters. And that would be the amount of dirt or flowers, ground that we would need to cover. Square meters. The answer to this one, what is the circumference? So make sure that you answer the right question. It is that distance around the circle.